Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central, and here's your host, Bob Hickey.
Welcome to another fantastic episode of Foxborough Central. I am Bob Hickey, your host, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join with me and my guest as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough truly the gem of Norfolk County. Now, as we get into election season, we are very excited to have one of our own, one of Foxborough's native sons, if you will, Paul Feeney. Paul, how are you doing?
Doing great, Bob. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. And Paul Feeney is running for the Bristol and Norfolk seat that is being vacated by our old friend Jim Timilty. Jim Timilty on the Democratic side has moved on to the Norfolk County Treasurer's Office, and that leaves the seat open for the remainder of the term. How many months is the term left for?
So the election's October 17th, and then it'll be up again next November.
So this is going to be a year under the belt, and if everything works out, then you'll be right back on the saddle of the campaign trail.
That's how it goes. It seems like it never ends around here.
Well, we're so glad to have Paul join us because I know, having known you, and full disclosure, I served with you on the Foxborough Board of Selectmen many moons ago.
Right. Seems like a lifetime ago.
I was just thinking that very same thing. But now here we are in the... you're taking the next step up, and I'm very impressed that you're willing to throw your hat in the ring and take that step. Not everybody is willing to do that. What made you say, hey, the opportunity is here and the time is now?
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. It's been really an incredible summer, an incredible few months. I did ruin my wife's summer. I think she had other plans this year, but
Laura's a wonderful person, and bless her heart for letting you do this.
Thank you. No, she's very supportive of everything I do, and this has been a joint venture between us. But look, I've had some great opportunities, and you and I served together years ago on the Board of Selectmen. I learned a lot. I've had some opportunities along the way as well. I served as the first Chief of Staff to Senator Jim Timilty when he first got elected.
That's why I first met you, in fact.
That's right.
At Cocasset Field when it was the McGinty Family Fun Day.
That's right.
I met you. That's the first time I met you.
Absolutely. And I got to know the district really well. We had actually moved to Foxborough in 2004. I served Senator Timilty in 2005. Mm-hmm. So, it was really kind of a crash course in the district, crash course in Foxborough. Came to love the community, love this district. Had some great opportunities along the way. I'm a blue-collar worker at heart. I've worked for the telephone company as a technician for the last 20 years, but always kind of kept my hand in local government and politics. I've volunteered throughout the community. I've been inspired, I think, recently in the last couple of years. I had the chance in 2016 to work on Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign for president here in Massachusetts. And, though we talk about ideology and values and issues, for me, it was incredible just to see how many people were getting involved in politics, Bob. I mean, we saw throughout this country, here in Massachusetts especially, but really throughout this country, new people getting involved in the process. Mm-hmm. That inspired me. I think, for a while, you tend to get bitter at the whole political process. There's a lot of divisiveness, and it's difficult to handle sometimes. But I was inspired in that campaign. Over the last year or so, I said, I think it's something that's important for people to give back, to step up and to act. So when this seat opened up, I had no idea that Senator Timilty was going to move on. He served this district ably. And when he moved on, the phone started ringing, and people said, are you interested in running? Do you want to do this? And I thought it was a great opportunity, and it's really been an incredible experience for the last 5 months, I guess, we've been running now.
Well, it's pretty cool that you're able to answer the call. So before we go any further, I want to share with folks at home that Paul is one of the easiest people to get a hold of. Whenever I've written a column and he knew how to get a hold of me. And I've always known, and you've always picked up the phone for me, so I'm sure he'll pick up the phone for you. You can reach out to him directly at paul@votefeeney.com. You'll see it on your screen, but also he's got a very nice website. He gives a lot of information. I was on it just this morning, and it's really, I'll say, refreshing to see a candidate who just puts it all out there. And it's as if you're talking to him when you read the website. So it's a really cool site to go to. You can go there yourself at www.votefeeney.com. Vote Feeney, VOTEFEENEY. And of course, Paul's always available on his cell phone at 617. You are available, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Call me. I love it.
You picked it up when I got you.
That's right.
617-930-872. 929. And of course, for those of us, well, not me, but for those of you who are Facebook savvy, you can be his friend at Paul Feeney for State Senate. So Paul, I hope I got all that right.
You did. No, thank you. It's important. I had a mentor of mine for years, Bob, who he always said, look, it's not always about your ability or your inability. It's about your availability and your accessibility. And I think that is, on my mind, especially in this campaign. People want to know, and again, we talk about, values and we talk about issues. People want to know that they can actually reach you, that they can get a hold of you. And whether it's on my cell phone or email, we field a lot of questions each day, people asking about issues, people asking about, what's important to me and why I'm running. So, that sort of thing, just that accessibility, I think helps. And I encourage anybody that wants to reach out to do that. We're down to, just less than a couple weeks now as of the taping of this show. So time is getting tight, but I encourage anybody, I get back to them, usually that day or at least later on in the night, and I encourage people to reach out.
Well, that's a great reminder, and a reminder to everybody at home that you should vote. It's your civic duty, and it's also a privilege not everybody in the world has, and we should take advantage of it. On October 17th, 2017, from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m., the polls will be open at the Ahern Middle School here in beautiful Foxborough. So there's really no reason not to vote. Make your voice heard and make your vote count by going to the polls on October 17th. It's probably going to be a bit of a light turnout, so it really falls upon each candidate to get their people out there. And I've always kind of rebelled against the guilt trips. Oh, people should go vote. I'm so disappointed. I never get disappointed because really, the people who feel passionately, strongly, they will get out the vote. People who don't vote either haven't been asked, or they don't feel compelled either because of issues or because there's no box that says none of the above. So let's talk to those folks at home who are thinking, gee whiz, I'm going to go vote, and why should I vote for Paul? Give me the top three. Why are we casting our vote for you?
Sure. Well, I think you hit it right on the head. It's going to be a low turnout. It was in the primary, and we're certainly expecting that in a special election coming up on the 17th. I can't tell you how many people, even friends of mine, I drive through Foxborough and they say, hey, I'm going to vote for you in November. I say, well, if you can vote for my opponent in November, vote for me on October 17th. It's going to be a low turnout. We know that. Not a lot of people are even aware there's a race. It is incumbent upon us as candidates to really drive out the vote. We were successful doing that in the primary because we had a great field operation. We literally went door to door. We talked to voters. We gave them the opportunity to reach out and ask me questions, and then we asked them again to get out and vote. We're going to continue to do that over these last few days before the general. I'll say that as we're going door to door, there's a few issues that come up consistently here in Foxborough and throughout the district. One of the things that we're talking about everywhere, and it sounds hacky because every single candidate that you've ever talked to says, well, education is key. It is. It's the backbone of our communities. Our public education system means everything to our communities. We need to be able to set up children for a lifetime of learning. But we can't do that when municipalities are left holding the bag because of state mandates and they don't get the resources to do that. We need to do everything we can to change the funding formula to make sure that towns like Foxborough and towns throughout the Bristol and Norfolk actually have the resources to be able to educate our children. Our schools are #1 in the nation. But in order for us to hold that designation and to grow, we need to make sure that we change that formula so that we're fully funding our schools. There was a commission report a couple years ago that came out. Smartest minds in the business got together and they said, look, what are some of the things that we can do differently for our public education system? They found that we are underfunding our schools from $1 to $2 billion per year. In Massachusetts, that's unconscionable. We should be able to find a way to make sure we're fully funding schools so that we realize the actual cost, and towns like Foxborough aren't trying to make up the difference in our municipal budgets, in our school budgets. So that's #1, education.
Well, I'm going to hold you right there because, and I'm going to give you some support on that because with your experience, with our experience when we were members of the Board of Selectmen back in the 2000s, we dealt with that, and we dealt with that from the side of the budget where we didn't control the school budget.
That's right.
We also didn't control the funding formula, and yet we were forced to make cuts and forced to tell the schools that they weren't getting the resources that they reasonably were requesting. And I think you and I both know that none of the town managers here create pie-in-the-sky budgets. It's really to meet the operational needs, whatever the contracts are, whatever their anticipated growth or challenges are going to be. And the problem with the schools is that you're so right. We have that state mandated funding formula that creates such an inequitable distribution because we as a public school, and you don't have to agree, I'm going to put it out there, we as a public school are dealing with all the infrastructure, all the community resources, all the buildings, all the technology, all the things that have to go into a public school system, whereas other schools, perhaps charters if we want to name, they don't have those responsibilities. They don't have to deal with the various special education and extracurricular and music and everything else that we have to do because we are a school system that accommodates everybody. A charter school has the privilege of being focused, which is great, and school choice is perfect if the funding sources are equitable in their distribution. And that is, you've obviously hit a topic button for me, and I don't know about you at home, but I hope you're feeling as passionate about this as I am, because it is a real issue, and I'm really happy that you've had that experience at the local level, so you can go in there and you can speak with not only authority, but from painful experience. So good for you for bringing that up.
You are 100% right. And when we look at the cost drivers of that, of special education especially, there's not a realization of what that actually means in a community like Foxborough. You know, this formula that they use is antiquated. I think the last time it was touched was 1993. I was 15 years old, and I didn't understand it then. And as a teenager, I don't understand it now running for Senate. That's a problem. We got to fix that. Special education obviously is a major cost driver in communities. And then the real cost, the people cost, the health insurance cost of our teachers, our educators, our school personnel. You know, they rise out of control. We need to do a better job in actually realizing what those costs are and making sure that the state does their job in funding our schools so that we can do things like you and I used to talk about and make sure that we're investing in music education and arts education in our schools, turning STEM into STEAM, you know, making sure that we invest in civics lessons. I mean, how many times do we bemoan the fact that there's low voter turnout, or the fact that, you know, young people don't come to town meeting, that they don't vote? We're not teaching civics in school. You know, financial literacy, right? How many times do you meet young people and they don't know how to balance a checkbook these days? We can do that and set up children for a lifetime of learning, but only if we invest correctly. And I just don't think we're doing a good enough job with that. So education's a big issue, obviously, for us. Transportation, we've been talking about. I'm one of those guys, Bob, and you know, I still do to this day take that miserable commute up 95 into Boston. We need to do a better job. And, you know, I think we need to invest in transportation opportunities. Don't get me wrong, I think the MBTA is terribly mismanaged. I think it has been, not only in this administration, but for previous administrations as well. But it doesn't mean that we can stop investing in it, right? We need more opportunities. We got to be smarter about it. We can find efficiencies. But, you know, one of the big issues here in Foxborough with the Patriot Place station, we've heard about it on a lot of doors that we've been going to. Every time I talk to a voter, they say, where are you on the Patriot Place commuter rail station? And I think it's one of the issues that separates me and my opponents. Look, I support it. You know, we remember the Patriot Place Review Committee when we were, you know, kind of conceptualizing what that was going to look like up there.
Well, I think a lot of the people out here, and you know, I'm so glad you brought this up also, because as you know, I'm a big supporter of it as well. And not ever accusing the MBTA of being the perfect agency, but public transportation is what they do.
Right.
And you can't stop until your house is completely in order when it comes to the future, because I always go back to when 128 was built and they made the exit ramps so that you could take them at 25 miles per hour.
Right.
And then almost as soon as it opened, they had to do reconstruction. They still do reconstruction because it's just something where you have to think 30, 50 years down the road. And I believe that's truly what the Patriot Place station, as well as their expansion and purchasing alliance, is doing. And so you're so spot on that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when we talked about Patriot Place years ago, before they even broke ground on it, you know, we talked about that being a center of economic growth in Foxborough. Now, I'm as close to that station, proposed station, as anybody in this town. There are certain things we need to do to mitigate it. But I trust that if we have somebody, and you know, as a senator, I will fight to make sure that we do mitigate those concerns, that the noise level is kept down, that the environmental issues are taken care of, that our neighbors in Walpole have a lot of their needs met, right? I mean, you know, that's what it's about. It's a regional impact here.
And that's also a challenge for you, because you're not a Foxborough candidate. There's 9 communities that you'll be representing, and so you have to be sensitive, but also take positions that are going to, you know, impact
Right.
positively, negatively, or just go by. And so that's so much harder. And again, credit to you for taking this task on.
Well, it's difficult. It is, but a lot of these issues are regional. These problems and issues don't stop at a town border. When you're a state senator, you need to be able to bring people together to seek consensus, to hold true to your values, which I think is what I've done my entire life. But when it comes to transportation, that was like we're proposing up at Patriot Place, it's important that we expand the opportunity for people in this town, especially. I've been working the Mansfield train station as, you're running for office, you go and you do the handshaking every morning. And I stand at that Mansfield commuter rail station and I see that there's not enough parking, that you have Foxborough people that are literally hoofing in a half a mile to get there and catch their train in the morning. There's not enough seats on the trains that do come by. We need to have a little bit of a pressure release valve, I think, on that system. And I think a fully functioning, commuter rail station at Patriot Place is the answer to that. Not only that, but it's consistent with what we want to see up on Route 1. It's consistent with our master plan. It's consistent with the economic growth that we expect and that we need to worry about, not only in Foxborough, but in Walpole as well, so that side of Route 1 is no longer Siberia, but that we actually have a functioning, economic growth engine that we can, that's going to, I think, serve us well for years to come.
And I couldn't agree more, because that Sharon, Walpole, Foxborough, Plainville stretch is ripe for development. And I know we in Foxborough, I'm guilty of it as well, we tend to focus on our properties, but that entire stretch is, and this goes back to when you and I were conceptualizing how we could support Patriot Place and its development, it's the largest swath of undeveloped land in the entire, from New Hampshire down to Connecticut, area that's able to actually be developed. And so it's a really interesting stretch of land. And with the confluence of the interstates coming in, plus the commuter rail opportunity, there's so much opportunity for growth there.
There really is, and the area sells itself. I mean, I love this town. I love Foxborough. When Laura and I were looking for a home, we chose Foxborough for a reason, and every day we're just, we're more and more thrilled that we're here. I mean, there's so much potential, so many good people, but we need to grow. We need to grow. We need to grow in a way that doesn't drain our resources, but in a smart way, right? And people across the Commonwealth for years have been talking about smart growth, centered around transit-oriented development. And I think we can do that, and we can do that with the station that's proposed. Again, though, we have to be cognizant of our neighbors in Walpole. We have to make sure that we're mitigating some of the negative effects for people in my neighborhood on the North Street corridor. But we can do that. We can do that if we partner with them. Sometimes the senator has to take the bully pulpit and do what they need to do to make sure that people are living up to their responsibilities. But I think we can do that. So those are a couple of the big issues that we've been talking about.
Well, I'm going to hit you with number 3, because
Sure.
I asked you for 3 and you promised me 3. But before we do that, I'm going to remind folks at home that I'm speaking with Paul Feeney, who is candidate. He's a Democratic Party nominee for the state Senate seat vacated by our friend Jim Timilty. It is for the Bristol-Norfolk seat here in, is it 9?
9 communities,
9 communities. Yeah. And so Paul's taking on a big task. If you are supportive of Paul or want to learn more about him and his campaign, check him out at www.votefeeney.com. You can email him and ask him a question or two at paul@votefeeney.com. You can call him on his cell phone or text him at 617-930-8729. Or you can be his friend on Facebook at Paul Feeney for State Senate. Whew, got that all out.
Got it all out. Perfect.
Got it all out.
Yeah.
It's easy to say.
You almost memorized it.
I almost did. I will by the time the show's over.
I hope so.
So, number 3.
So,
if we didn't love you now, tell us the real reason.
Well, I think, so when we talk about issues, obviously the opioid crisis is a major issue throughout this district.
It's a terrible continuing tragedy that gets worse and worse because of new issues that arise that creates a new horror on top of the old horror.
Oh yeah, well said. There is not one community that's immune to this, not one family that's immune to this throughout the district. And, for me, it's not an abstract issue. As you know, I serve as the workplace representative for a lot of my coworkers. I'm a telephone worker by trade, but I do a lot of work with the IBEW, which is my union. And as the representative of my coworkers, I've seen firsthand the grip of addiction and what it can mean to a family. I've taken that trip down to Gosnold, one of the treatment centers down the Cape, with some of my own friends and members, and tried to get them treatment. But they're able to seek that treatment and get it because we have great health insurance. Not everybody has that opportunity, and not everybody has that access. So I think we need to do a better job in the Commonwealth, and I applaud the governor. I think Governor Baker and his second iteration of the kind of the opioid task force that he's created, I think that he's done a great job. We need to do more. As a state senator, I want to make sure that we mandate insurance coverage so that it's not simply a 5-day, spin dry treatment where we're sending people away, getting them cleaned up, and then they're coming out and they're still suffering from addiction. Making sure that we cover transitional treatment and long-term treatment. And then on the other side, making sure that there's enough treatment beds here in Massachusetts. It seems like a lot of the attention goes to Boston and some of the gateway cities. We have a real problem around here as well. And I want to make sure that anybody that seeks treatment has the ability to find it and has the ability to afford it. So that's been a big issue we've been talking about. It's a terrible, terrible crisis that's gripping this district. I have been to too many wakes and funerals of young people especially. It's bad. We need to do a lot more. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Professional Firefighters of Massachusetts here. Those are the people that are dealing with it every single day. Same with the Massachusetts Nurses Association who endorsed my candidacy. They're looking for partners. They're looking for help with state government to make sure that we give them the resources, not just Narcan, where they can go out and save lives, but then where there's that second piece, where they can actually send somebody to get help.
What happens after the Narcan?
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Wow. So that's a great challenge, and it's such a moving target too.
Sure.
As soon as one solution is identified, two more monsters rear their heads, and
That's right.
so it's such an immediate issue. So I'm going to ask you. We're so close to running out of time. There's so much.
Already?
I feel like we could talk forever.
How did this happen?
I know.
Where's the after show? Where
So,
are we going to go for
on the after show, you'll have to check us out, and he'll post it at www.votefeeney.com.
Right.
But so leading up to that, so at the state level, there are many challenges. Now, the Democratic Party has control of the state Senate, but it's a Republican governor. So part of this is going to be creating relationships and partnerships. Now, you have
Absolutely.
that experience in the public-private sector, not only locally, but also at the state level. You can go either with contracts, or you can go for real-world business. How does that experience play into the state, and what do you think the biggest challenge is going to be up on Beacon Hill?
I think you hit it right on the head, that experience does matter. And in this race, I think that's what separates me from my opponents. Not only do I have the experience working in the state legislature for Senator Timothy as his chief of staff, representing my coworkers in the legislature as a legislative director for my local, serving as a selectman with you on the Board of Selectmen for that term. That type of experience, I think, lends itself to understanding a lot of these issues from various frames of reference that I think are important. One of the things that I think we see too much of is this kind of partisan rancor, right? We see all over the country, and even here in Massachusetts and in this area, it's like we put on our jerseys, you put on your Patriots jersey, and that's my team, and I'm sticking to it. That works for football. It doesn't work in politics. Now, I'm somebody who wears my heart on my sleeve, as you know. It's probably got me into trouble a lot more than it hasn't. But I wear my heart on my sleeve. I know who I fight for. I know who I stick up for. I know what my values are. But you always have to seek consensus. And I think I've learned a lot over the years. I'm certainly not a perfect person, Bob. And my time on the Board of Selectmen was a learning experience, especially working with you. I don't think we saw eye to eye on too many issues. But we understood that our intent was pure and our intent was positive.
I think you're absolutely right. We always knew that in our heart we were doing what we thought was best for the
That's right.
people that we were representing. And that's the key to any political office, is to put them in front of us.
That's
because
right.
that's really what it's all about. So
Yeah, and that's we need
I'm
more
going to
of
say
that.
you have hit it right on the head.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. We need more of that in state government. I'll always stick to my values. I'll always fight for what I know is right. But at the same time, you have to seek consensus. We have to work with the Republican governor. We have to work with the Republican minority to make sure everybody has the voice. But I'm a proud Democrat, but I also think we need to return to our roots of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, of John F. Kennedy, offer a new deal of economic opportunity for the people of Massachusetts, and not let divisive wedge issues get in the way of progress. That's how I intend to serve. It's how I've lived my life, and I'm just really excited about this opportunity to go to Beacon Hill and do that.
Mr. Feeney, we are so out of time. I'm going to give you the last word. Before we do, I'm going to remind everybody again to look up Paul online at www.votefeeney.com. I got it right. You can also email him at paul@votefeeney.com. Call him at 617-930-8729, or be his friend on Facebook, Paul Feeney for State Senate. Just a quick reminder that October 17th is Election Day. Polls open at 7 a.m. at the Ahern Middle School, and they'll be open all the way till 8 p.m. So 13 hours to go out and take advantage of that wonderful opportunity you have to vote and make your voice heard. I'll be voting, and I will see you there. I hope also to see Paul or one of his supporters out there holding signs.
We'll be
and
there.
If people want to volunteer for you, they should reach out to your website. I imagine you have a volunteer page there?
Yep, reach out to the website. You can sign up to volunteer right there. You can get email updates, and so we'll let you know what's happening over these last few days.
Paul, you get the last word, my friend.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been truly, truly blessed to live in this community of Foxborough, to serve the people of Foxborough, to run for this seat. It's been a great experience so far. Look, there's a clear choice here, and I think experience matters, as we talked about, Bob, but also you need to make sure that we're electing somebody that knows where they stand, that's available, that's accessible, that fights for the people of this community and throughout this district. I've been blessed with some great opportunities. I've learned a lot from great people. I want to take that experience and put it to work for the people of this district as their state senator. But above and beyond that, we need people to get out and vote on October 17th. So I ask for your vote. I ask for your vote, Bob, everybody here in studio that's a voter. But the most important thing is we get people out on Tuesday, October 17th to take part in the process.
Paul Feeney, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bob.
And best of luck as you run for the State Senate seat for the last 13 months of the unexpired term of Jim Timilty for the Norfolk Bristol area.
Great, thank you.
Phenomenal. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me here at Foxborough Central as we speak with Paul Feeney, candidate for State Senate. I hope you've enjoyed this interview, and remember that none of this is possible without the great support of our volunteers here at Foxborough Cable Access, including Deb Storrs and Mike Stewart behind the cameras, Paul Beck behind the glass, Jillian Larson who edits us, Lauren Battar who scheduled us, and Michael Weber who puts up with us. On behalf of all those wonderful people, I'm Bob Hickey, your host, thanking you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, Foxborough. And don't forget to vote, October 17th. Take care.